Hello everyone, and welcome to part 2 of the 009 Mid-Sodor Railway build. Before we get into the action, there are some things I want to say. I want to say thank you for all the support the last video has gotten. As of me recording this video, it is the fastest growing video I have ever made, and it has the most likes out of any video on my channel. This was the most effort I have put into a video at this point, and to see the positive reception the video has gotten is very heartwarming, so again, thank you very much. Secondly, there are some details about the layout plan that have been changed. As said in the last video, one of the destinations for the layout was Casney-Howen, both the station and the lead mine. This was to be the main attraction on the rear side of the layout. However, when the track was all laid and after a bit of thinking, I concluded that there was not enough room in order for the station to be present. I didn't want the station to look like an afterthought. I decided to axe Casney-Howen from the layout and replace it with something that makes a little bit more sense: the Arlesdale mines. It's still a lead mine, so the scenery and structures planned for that area will not change, but from a geography standpoint it makes more sense, since on the layout, the mines diverge off from the main route from the Arlesdale station. This may disappoint some people, and I do plan to make a smaller layout focusing solely on Casney-Howen, similar to the likes of Corish from George Williamson. However, I believe that this change will result in a cleaner, less cramped looking railway. With that being said, let's get into the real meat of this video. This video will be focused on everything regarding the wiring of the layout, including powering the track, electrofrog points, and solenoid point motors. I've already wired the layout as you have seen trains around the layout already, so I'll be brief when talking about powering the layout. The controller I use for the layout is an MRC Tech 4 280 controller. I got it for $50 at a train show and is probably the best controller I have ever used. It features 2 sets of terminals for track power and 1 set for accessories use. This controller uses screw terminals. Power is transferred through smash connections utilizing the screw smashing the wire up against this metal plate, conducting power. These wires connect to the layout using these DC power jacks. I will have all parts used in this video linked in the description below. These are easy to set up since they use simple screw-in terminals to connect the wires. The female connector wires up to the track and is hot glued into the frame of the layout. More wires are daisy-chained to more female connectors featured on the opposite side of the layout, thus enabling me to switch which side of the layout people will see. These wires from the female terminal also run through the front stretch of the layout, allowing for dropper wires to be wired into the electrofrog points. Speaking of which, electrofrog points sound very complicated, especially when getting started with the hobby, but trust me when I say these things are totally worth it, especially for 009 scale. For those who don't know, there are 3 kinds of points: insulfrog, electrofrog, and unifrog. All 3 types come in different shapes and sizes, but require different ways to set them up. I won't be talking too much about unifrog points because I don't believe any are made for 009. Check out this video from That Model Railway Guy for some more info about them. He provides a good, clear explanation for how they work and some benefits from using them, so go check it out. Okay, let's start with insulfrog points. These are points where the frog, aka this little V shape in the point, is insulated with a piece of plastic, thus named insulfrog. These are the most common type. They are easy to set up, but the plastic frog can lead to stalling for smaller engines, and in 009, everything is a small engine. The stalling issues and the teeny tiny radius of the only insulfrogs available in 009 prevented me from choosing them for the layout. That is why I chose electrofrogs. When you buy your electrofrog point, Pico provides a small diagram displaying how the layout must be arranged. For example, insulated rail joiners must be used when the curved routes on a turnout are going against each other. This little booklet is extremely helpful when making the track plan. The diagram also shows that dropper wires must be installed before the frog on every set of points. I installed these dropper wires and connected them back to the main wires that were connected to the female DC connector. I also used these plastic holders that screw into the baseboard so that the wiring doesn't dangle everywhere and snag onto something. If you want to know more about electrofrog points and want a clear understanding of them, check out these videos from Little Wicked Railway and Dean Park Model Railway. These videos both explain this concept much better than I can and even go into depth regarding modifying electrofrog points, which I haven't done. Go check them out. So installing point motors is not that hard of a job, but it does take some time. I'm using solenoid point motors, specifically these Seep PM1 motors. They are cheap and generally reliable, which is exactly what I wanted. Even before the track was laid down, holes needed to be drilled out for where the point motor arm will go. The size of the drill bit is about 5mm or 3/16 of an inch, wide enough to give the arm enough clearance while not being too large. Using a smaller drill bit, I drilled 2 holes on either side aligned with the tie rod. No, these are not the holes that fit the motor in, but these are used to help align the point motor with the turnout. You can see the 2 holes shine underneath the baseboard. By tracing a pencil between these 2 points, you can align the motor with the turnout using this line. When you have the point motor where you want, trace the 2 holes for the screws to go through and use a pin vise to drill them out. I will link what screws I used in the description below as they are not included with the point motor. Now I decided to pre-cut the point motor arm before installing. You can use a Dremel to cut the arm after installation, but I find that heat from the Dremel melts the tie rod. I also ground down the arm pretty low, which will come into play when we add the turnout levers, probably in the next episode. This process was repeated for the rest of the point motors, labeling them for reference for the control panel. Now it was time for the wiring. I'm not going to lie with you guys, this is the most extensive wiring I have ever done for any layout ever, and it was a bit frustrating at the time. I didn't film too much of it either, so bear with me. As stated before, this is a Seep PM1 motor, which both switches the motor and changes the polarity of the frog. That would be sweet if both of those features actually worked. As you can see on motors 1 and 2, I tried to wire up tabs D, E, and F, which are used to switch to frog, but this was drawing too much current and my trains weren't running right. I don't know what I did wrong. I wired everything up correctly, and maybe changing the frog only works on modified points, I don't know. So I didn't use this feature and only used tabs A, B, and C on the rest of the motors. These are the tabs used solely for switching the motor arm. On the plus side, this does mean that there will be less pesky wires to deal with. The colors used for the motor were blue for tab A, white for tab B, and yellow for tab C. The colors don't matter, but it helps organize things, and these colors specifically were chosen to be different from the standard red, black, and green wires used everywhere else. After the wires were soldered on the point motors, all the wires were traced back to this DB25 screw terminal. The blue and white wires were separated to either side, but the blue wires connected into the terminal number that corresponded to that specific point motor. For example, blue wire from point motor 1 goes to terminal 1, and the white wire goes directly opposite from that wire, in this case terminal 25. The common wire was daisy-chained between each point motor, and ran back to a single wire going into an unused terminal, in this case terminal 12. Every wire was daisy-chained to another DB25 screw terminal for use on the other side of the layout. Now with the wires in the terminal, we need to lead these wires out from underneath the layout. I cut a hole in the supporting beam to make room for this extension cable, which leads into another DB25 connector. Now in order to have a terminal screwed on the side of the layout, I use this DB25 male connector with solder tabs on the back. This connector is a lot easier to screw into the frame. I soldered the wires from this terminal to the screw terminal, paying close attention to the labeling on the tabs, matching them to the wire numbers on the screw terminal. That is everything underneath the layout taken care of. Now it is time for the control panel. Now there are wooden control panels made specifically for model railways, and they look very good. I'll link one down in the description. However, I wanted to save a little bit of cash, so I went with this generic wooden box I found at a local craft store for $8. It works and it does the job, I guess. I painted the box black and outlined the track plane with paint pens. Not my best work, but it works. I also drilled the holes out for the toggle switches, corresponding them with the points on the layout, which is why I labeled the points earlier. The first thing I did was drill out a slot for another DB25 screw terminal and screwed it down into the box. I also screwed down the CDU and drilled a hole out for the power supply to run to. The toggle switches were also fitted. They were held in with the supply nut threaded around the base of the switch into the board. When working with solenoid point motors, you need a CDU, otherwise you can potentially burn out your motors from too much power going through them. I'm using this one by Gaugemaster. Now wiring up the switches is pretty easy. First I need to get power in through the CDU, so I installed red and black wires on the 2 left terminals, aka the in terminals on the CDU. These are wired up to another DC female terminal, which will eventually feed into the accessory terminal on my controller. Then I wired the yellow common wire to the negative out terminal on the CDU. Make sure this matches to the same terminal number as is on the layout, which in this case is number 12. It is now time to solder the other wires. The blue wire will go to one end of the toggle switch with the white wire going to the other side. I made sure to use the same wires from the corresponding point motor to match to its toggle switch. The red wire goes to the middle terminal on the toggle switch, which kinda acts as our common wire. This wire comes from the positive out terminal on the CDU. Since this is a common wire, I can daisy chain this wire across all the toggle switches, similar to what I did with the yellow wire on the motors. This process was repeated for the 10 other switches. And that's it. Okay, the layout doesn't look different, but it sure does feel different. Having the ability to switch the points without any hands on the layout is just wonderful. The trains still run as great as before. This should be the extent of the wiring on the layout unless I do lights for the buildings, which I don't know if I will. But with that being said, let's run some trains. I have a particular engine here that needs his steamroller wheels run in. I want to thank you all again for the huge support that you guys gave me from the last video. I never would have expected that I would gain that much support in such a short amount of time. The fact that it is the most liked video ever on my channel blows my mind. Thank you so much, it really means a lot. I hope the end result will be worth the wait. Thank you for watching and hope to see you very soon.